In this video, we are talking about holiday food, like navigating food around the holidays, navigating food with your kids at holiday parties, all the complicated stuff that comes with holidays and food and family. We do have another video that will be in this course as well about navigating like difficult family dynamics, family comments, family pressure. So some of the questions in this video are about family, but I've tried to save all of that for the family video. So just keep that in mind, like it's kind of like a two-part series a little bit. So the first part of this video is some of my quick tips for holiday meals, and the second part is going to be a Q&A answering questions from my Instagram page. So I put up a question box in my stories and asked what questions people had about holiday food. So before attending a holiday gathering where someone else is hosting and providing food, because if it's in your house, then obviously you can set your normal rules and boundaries. Anyways, if it's at somebody else's house, I always try to set expectations for my kids. So something that I will say to my daughter, who is 3.5, but I've been saying to her since she was younger, is sometimes rules are different in someone else's kitchen, and that's okay. Or you never have to eat anything you don't want to. Or if someone tells you to try a bite or put something on your plate and you don't want to, just say no thank you, or you never have to do that if you don't want to. You could say something like, at our house, we serve sweet foods with meals, but grandma might serve dessert after dinner instead of with dinner, or grandma might only have enough cookies for each person to have one. I just want you to know that so you're not surprised. Know that holiday meals are so few in number compared to the meals that your kids are gonna get for the rest of the year. So if our kids eat 3 meals per day, that's 1,095 meals every year, give or take, depending on your kids. Add in 2 snacks per day, and we get a total of 1,825 instances to offer a diverse range of nutrients to our kids to help them develop a healthy relationship with food. If a small handful of these meals, or even a small handful of the days in the year, have higher than normal amounts of sugar, lots of snacking, wacky meal times, that's okay. A few holiday meals aren't going to ruin your child's progress throughout the year. Keep things consistent at home, respect your child's mealtime independence at holiday meals, and maintain boundaries over how family members talk to your kids about food and bodies. And I'll address that in the family dynamics video. Your kids' mealtime eating is going to be wacky and different on the holidays. They may resort to comfort foods because everything is changing and everything is different. There's lots of new sensory experiences. There's lots of family members. They might be getting less sleep. There's lots of excitement. It's normal for them to go to a holiday meal and just want their comfort foods. That's totally okay. There's lots of excitement. There's going to be tons of different types of foods, maybe even some that they've never seen before or aren't used to. Again, schedules are wonky. You're around a lot of different people that they might not be around all the time. And yeah, it's normal that it affects our kids' eating habits. It's also normal that it affects our eating habits. Those kind of changes and uprooting routines would affect anyone's eating habits. So hold firm with the you provide, child decide boundaries that you have set in place at your home. Keep those when you go out. Reduce the restriction mindset when it comes to holiday foods, but of course keep safety in mind. Like that's a 100% firm boundary as far as like choking hazards go. And know that holiday meals are only a tiny fraction of the food experiences that your kids get throughout the year. So how do we help kids see all holiday foods as normal when the family says they're treats? So this is a question I got on Instagram. And so here we just have to continue to enforce your healthy relationship with food language that we have at home. So if someone says like, oh, that this is a treat, you can say to your kid like, oh, hey, we try not to use those words about food, this is just like any other food that we eat. You can tell that in front of the family member. You can tell that to the family member. You can also, if you're uncomfortable doing that in the situation, you can also tell your kiddo at home, like after the fact, hey, grandma called a cookie a treat, but it's really just like any other food, you know? We serve it with the rest of our foods on our plate, and it's just like any other food. Or, so that's one approach you can take. Or you can just continue to not use that word at home and to continue to enforce your boundaries, your healthy, positive body talk and neutral food talk at home. And know that like one blip when somebody calls food a treat isn't going to ruin your kid's entire perspective. So remember, like if they are exposed to people calling something a treat for one day, and then you're consistent with it at home, then sometimes that's the best you can do, and that's okay. Your kids are gonna do great with that. If your kid starts to see a food as a treat, then we are going to continue to implement our strategies for sweets, because usually these foods that are called treats are sweet foods. We may need to introduce it more to normalize it to our kids and bring it back off of that pedestal. Because remember, our kids' relationship with food is like a moving target. It's like a roller coaster. It has ups and downs. And sometimes when we have an unhealthy view of sweets, we can bring it back to normal by normalizing those sweets with the strategies I talk about in this course, the strategies that I've talked about on my Instagram page and on my YouTube videos. So keep that in mind. All right, another question I get is, how do I serve dessert with the meal when everyone else waits until later? So my response to this is, I don't. I prep my kids ahead of time by saying, hey, grandma usually serves dessert with the meal. Just so you know, I don't want you to be surprised, because that's not something, or grandma usually serves dessert after the meal. Just so you know, I don't want you to be surprised, because that's not normally something we do at home, but that's okay. Sometimes when we go to other people's houses, things are different. Continue to serve dessert with the meal at home, and know that a couple instances of them getting dessert after the fact is not gonna affect your kids' relationship with food in like a hugely negative way. They're gonna get exposed to this a lot throughout their life. At birthday parties, cake is served after. At weddings, cake is served at the end. So it's normal in our culture to have dessert after the fact. So the best we can do is to help them establish that healthy relationship with food at home, so we can give them a strong foundation so they're not really fazed by dessert being served after when they go out. I also like to tell my kids ahead of time, hey, just so you know, we're having cake after dinner tonight. So that way they don't feel like they're eating their full at dinner, and then they get to the cake and they're already stuffed, and then they're like stuffing themselves even more with the cake or the pie or whatever your holiday dinner is. So, you know, you're letting them know ahead of time, in case you want to save room in your tummy, we're having dessert after. So this is all about communication and being clear with your kids. So next question I get is, my kids see adults snacking and eating sweets frequently. Do I always give them these sweets and snacks when adults are eating them too? This again is really like what works best for your family and your kids. In general, if there's something out and available to everybody, I let my kids have it as long as it's safe. I know their meals are gonna be wonky. That might mean that they fill up on chocolate covered pretzels before the dinner even comes. And honestly, it is what it is for me. I'd rather have reduced the restriction mindset and say, sure, grandma set out the pretzels, and that means that they're available to anyone who wants to eat them, as long as we're sharing them with everyone else. So if it's something like adults are grabbing things out of the fridge, but it's not like a platter set out for everybody, I might say, hey, that's not on the menu right now. Uncle Dan was hungry, so he got something out of the fridge, but you and me, we're gonna wait till dinner time in 30 minutes. So, you know, you're saying that you're also gonna adhere to those boundaries with your kids, and you're using that phrase, that's not on the menu right now, and leaving it at that. Then we kind of do a distraction or move on to a different activity. It's okay to talk to your kids about, that's not on the menu for you right now, even though it's on the menu for so-and-so, because, you know, in a big family, people are gonna be eating things differently, and you know, maybe somebody else is eating something for a reason. Maybe they're struggling with their relationship with food. So we don't want to criticize or change someone else's eating habits for the sake of our kids, as long as they're not doing any like negative self-food talk or body talk, or negative self or body talk or food talk. So I really don't like tell people, hey, can you not snack in front of my kids? If it's a toddler who like doesn't understand, in those situations, I might ask them to either like try to be discreet, or I might move my toddler. But if it's my older kid, I just say, hey, that's not on the menu right now. You could also do something like, if you're hungry, I can get out an apple for you. I can get out a milk for you, a glass of milk for you, but we're gonna have dinner in 30 minutes. So you have options here, and it really just depends on what you feel comfortable with your family. So next question. How to not restrict sweets when your kid won't go to bed if they have some with dinner. So a couple thoughts here. First is serve them at breakfast or snacks or lunch. Serve them at different times of the day. We as a culture generally tend to serve sweets like in the form of dessert more with dinner, even though a lot of sweets are also served with breakfast in the form of just breakfast foods. So keep that in mind. You can offer it at different times of the day and still help your kids get out of this restriction mindset. If other people are eating our dessert around them and you are saying you can't eat dessert because you're not going to go to sleep, your kids are going to feel restricted. There's no way around it. So you just have to decide which is a priority for you. Keep in mind that while your experiences are certainly valid as the parent, we do have a lot of research suggesting that sugar does not lead to hyperactivity in kids. There is a probably like moderate level of evidence that it's linked to hyperactivity in kids with ADHD. But as far as kids without ADHD or like neurotypical kids, we see there being a lack of evidence for sugar being linked to hyperactivity. Oftentimes in these scenarios where kids are having a lot of sugar, it's at like holidays or birthday parties or like super fun and exciting times where there's tons of stimulation and tons of play and like lots of activity and lots of different people and just lots of things to take in. And those are the things that cause our kids to have trouble sleeping, not necessarily the sugar. So keep that in mind. If you notice like you're restricting sugar from your kids and they're still having trouble sleeping after the holiday gatherings, perhaps it wasn't the sugar in the first place. However, I'm a dietitian on YouTube. I don't know your kid and I don't know your kid's unique situation. So if you feel it's best to restrict sugar from your kid at bedtime, you just have to make the decision and weigh the pros and cons and know that if everybody else is having dessert and you restrict it from your kid, they will feel restricted. And there isn't really a way around that. So that's kind of my response for you there. All right, next question is, my toddler never wants to eat anything when we're away from home. What should I do? This sounds like a kiddo who is experiencing some mealtime anxiety. So I would encourage you to reach out to either a mental health professional or a dietitian to help you kind of navigate this, because we want your child to feel comfortable eating in different settings. Oftentimes kiddos with pediatric feeding disorders who experience mealtime anxiety and are put in a new setting to eat can struggle even more. So this sounds like a situation where you may want to reach out for one-on-one professional support. I don't recommend just like bringing them their own lunch or bringing them their own dinner and having them eat something totally different from the rest of the family. But of course, communicating with the person who is serving dinner, be it grandma, aunt, uncle, hopefully a family friend of some sort, somebody that you can talk to see if there's going to be a safe food for your child. If there isn't going to be a safe food for your child, you can always offer to bring a dish and make sure that that dish is one that your child is familiar and comfortable with, and that can help kind of ease them into the family eating situation that's away from home. All right, so a couple more questions here. How do I navigate hard candy meltdowns when it's a choking hazard? So like, let's say your 2-year-old wants a candy cane, or your 3-year-old wants a peppermint, or any other holiday candies that might be laying around, like in the dish on grandma's countertop. Sorry that I'm kind of targeting grandmas here. It can be any family members, really. So when it comes to safety, my rule is hard and fast. I absolutely do not allow for dabbling in these foods that are a choking risk or a safety hazard for kids for the sake of a relationship with food. We can always repair relationship with food after the fact, but we can't repair a situation where choking has occurred and caused a medical emergency or a dire outcome. So as the parent here, you would navigate this just like you would navigate a meltdown over any other thing that they can't do. How would you navigate a meltdown if your child wants to jump in the swimming pool and it's 40 degrees outside? Or how would you navigate a meltdown if they want to put their finger in the socket of a plug? You know, it's a safety hazard, and you have to avoid it and navigate it like a safety hazard meltdown, like you would any other time. Or for example, like your child is having a meltdown because they don't want to get buckled in their car seat. I equate that to they want to eat a hard candy. It's a safety hazard, and we need to stick to our boundaries there. I do tell my daughter, who's 3.5, why she can't have certain foods and that it's a choking hazard. And she is definitely understanding that now. It's really cute to hear her say, that's a choking hazard. So she's totally a dietitian's kid. All right, so that is it for the holiday food video. I saved a ton of content or questions for the difficult family dynamics, family pressure, family comments video. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you watch that because that's really important. And it probably will be answering more of the questions that you have about like family around the holidays. Hopefully this was helpful, and stay tuned for the rest of the videos in the course.